Hello and welcome. You're here because something inside you knows it's time for a shift. Time to stop letting old patterns quietly run the show and start building the kind of habits that match the person you want to be. Badass habits. Cultivate the awareness, boundaries, and daily upgrades. You need to make them stick, is a book about transformation. Not the kind that happens overnight, but the kind that roots itself deep into your identity and grows into a life you can be proud of. If you find this summary helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to BookSnap, and comment below the title of the book you'd like us to summarize next. We'll make it happen soon. Now take a moment to imagine your own daily life as a series of brushstrokes on a massive canvas. Every thought you repeat, every small action you take, every belief you carry is another line of color across that canvas. At first it seems like chaos. Little streaks of this, little dabs of that. But with time, these marks merge into patterns, and those patterns become the picture you live inside of. The truth is, the life you're experiencing right now is nothing more than the sum of your habits, repeated again and again until they've hardened. Jen Sincero begins her journey by asking a piercing question. Who are you being, day after day? Not what goals you say you want, not the dreams you write down in your journal, but who you actually show up as in the small, repeated choices of your morning, your conversations, your thoughts. Habits are not just actions, they are declarations of identity. Every time you choose to hit snooze, you are being someone. Every time you reach for your phone instead of starting that project, you are be. Picture yourself waking up tomorrow morning. Your alarm rings. Do you pull the blanket tighter, convincing yourself you deserve just 10 more minutes? Or do you swing your legs over the bed, plant your feet firmly, and begin the day as the kind of person who honors their own word? It's such a small moment, but it's the first domino. One action triggers the next. One choice becomes a chain reaction. The book insists this is not about willpower alone. It's about stepping into the awareness that you already are capable of something greater, and your habits are proof of how much you believe that. There is a quiet power in recognizing the habits you currently have. Imagine walking through your home with a lantern, peering into all the corners. You notice the cluttered desk where bills pile up, a reflection of postponed decisions. You notice the empty journal on the nightstand, a reminder of promises to yourself that have yet to be kept. Instead of shaming yourself, you pause and simply observe. Because awareness is not about judgment, it is about clarity. And clarity is the foundation of change. This moment of recognition is where the badass within you stirs. It's not about being harsh with yourself. It's about telling the truth. I am someone who... That phrase becomes your compass. I am someone who takes care of my body. I am someone who keeps my word. I am someone who shows up. These statements are not distant goals. They are identities you begin to inhabit through repeated daily choices. The wake-up call is realizing that your habits are not chores to survive, but rituals that prove who you are becoming. So you stand there looking at the canvas of your life. You see the brush strokes you've made without thinking, the habits that have dulled your colors or blurred your picture. And you feel the quiet thrill of possibility. What if every stroke from this moment forward could add vibrance, clarity, and power? What if your life could actually look the way you dream it should? That's where the journey begins. Not with a grand gesture, not with a massive overnight transformation, but with the simple, radical act of waking up to yourself. Noticing, naming, choosing. Because the first step toward badass habits is understanding the ones you already live by, and daring to imagine what your life would become if you created them on purpose. You begin to realize that the deepest changes in life don't happen because you force yourself to wake up earlier, drink more water, or hit the gym for a week. They happen because you stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "Who do I want to be?" This is the heartbeat of Jen Sincero's teaching. Identity comes first, habits follow. Think of it this way. If you see yourself as someone who struggles with money, every financial decision you make will bend to confirm that identity. You'll spend impulsively, avoid looking at your bank account, and reinforce the story that you're bad with money. But if you shift to, I am someone who respects money and always knows where it's going, your daily choices begin to change. You start checking your balances, saying no to wasteful purchases, and saving in small but consistent ways. The action flows from the identity. It's like building a house. You don't just pick up bricks and hope they form something livable. You first decide what kind of home you want: warm and welcoming, sleek and modern, quiet and minimal. That vision shapes every nail, every board, every brush of paint. Without it, the bricks pile up into a confusing heap. Your habits are those bricks. Your identity is the blueprint. Without the blueprint, the structure is weak. With it, every habit clicks into place, forming a foundation that can hold the life you long for. As you listen to this, you may start to notice the subtle ways you've been defining yourself. Maybe you've been telling yourself, I'm not disciplined enough, or I'm just not the kind of person who finishes things. Every time you repeat those sentences, you're casting votes for a version of yourself you don't even want to be. What if you rewrote that script? What if, instead of, I'm not disciplined, you whispered to yourself, I am someone who keeps showing up? Sincero reminds you that the mind clings to identity. It resists change because change feels like death. When you try to build a new habit without shifting who you believe you are, your subconscious will sabotage you to keep you consistent with your old story. That's why diets fail, why gym memberships gather dust, why journals fill with half-finished entries. It isn't because you're weak. It's because you're trying to act like someone you don't yet believe yourself to be. The transformation begins when you flip the script. You declare, I am the kind of person who, and you let your actions prove it. Want to become a writer? Start by identifying as one. Writers write, so you write, even if it's only one paragraph a day. Want to be healthier? Tell yourself you are someone who honors their body, then drink water, take a walk, breathe deeply. Each act is a vote for your new identity, and every vote makes the story stronger. Close your eyes for a moment and picture your future self. The badass version of you who already has the habits you crave. How do they walk into a room? What words do they speak? How do they spend their mornings, their evenings, their time alone? That person is not a stranger. They are you, just on the other side of your daily choices. The bridge between who you are now and who you long to be is built with habits. One brick, one step, one decision at a time. Awareness is the flashlight you finally pick up in a dark room. For years you may have stumbled, bumping into the same old furniture of your life, wondering why you kept tripping over the same sharp corners. But when you shine that light into the shadows, you see it clearly, the habits you've been practicing without even noticing. Jen Sincero invites you to stop pretending you don't know what's really going on. Because deep down, you do. You know the way your hand drifts to your phone every time you feel uncomfortable. You know how often you silence the voice that whispers you're capable of more. You know the relief that floods in when you avoid the hard thing, even if that relief lasts only a moment. Awareness is uncomfortable because it strips away excuses. But it is also the key to freedom, because you cannot change what you refuse to see. Imagine sitting in a cafe, watching yourself from across the room. You see the way you hunch your shoulders, how you stir sugar into your coffee even though you promised to cut back, how you scroll through messages instead of working on that project. None of these acts are dramatic on their own, yet together, they are a map of your current identity. Awareness allows you to study that map, to ask, is this really where I want to go? At first, the answers may sting. You might notice habits of self-criticism, patterns of overcommitting, or rituals of procrastination that steal your time. But rather than beating yourself up, you're called to simply witness. Think of it like a scientist observing a star through a telescope. The scientist doesn't scold the star for shining too brightly or fading too quickly. They just take notes, curious, attentive, present. That's your job now. Observe. Name. Notice without judgment. This is where the magic begins. When you see the loop, the trigger, the behavior, the result, you create space between stimulus and response. A fight with a loved one no longer has to end in slammed doors. An overwhelming workload no longer has to trigger late-night snacking or scrolling. Awareness is the pause that lets you decide, instead of defaulting. And with that pause comes choice. You begin to ask new questions. What am I craving right now? Connection? Rest? Validation? You realize that the habit of checking your phone isn't about the device itself, but about soothing loneliness. The habit of procrastinating isn't laziness, but fear of failure wearing a different mask. By naming the truth, you strip these habits of their mystery. They lose their power to control you because you finally see them for what they are. It's like pulling weeds in a garden. Until you crouch down and really look, the weeds blend with the grass. But once you recognize them, you can tug them out by the root and make room for flowers to bloom. Awareness is your hand on the soil, your eyes sharp, your heart willing to see what's actually there. This stage is not about perfection, it's about honesty. To cultivate new, lasting habits, you must first understand the architecture of your old ones. When you bring awareness to your daily rituals, you begin to notice the story you've been unconsciously telling with your time, your energy, your choices. And once you see the story, you can finally begin to rewrite it. There comes a moment when you understand that awareness alone is not enough. You can see the patterns, name them, even laugh at the absurdity of them. But the real transformation begins when you recognize your power to choose differently. Every habit is a fork in the road. One path keeps you in the familiar rut. The other path demands courage, but it leads somewhere new. Think of those quiet moments when you stand in front of the fridge at night. The habit says, open the door, grab something sweet, numb the feelings. But pause. Awareness has already shown you what's happening. Now the question is, who do you want to be in this moment? The person who numbs or the person who nourishes? Choice is the bridge between your old self and your new one. Jen Sincero insists that you are not trapped. The story that you are stuck is just another habit, another belief repeated so often it feels like truth. But the truth is, you are one decision away from rewriting your trajectory. You don't have to overhaul your life in a single thunderclap of willpower. You only have to choose, in this moment, to cast a vote for the identity you want. Then, you do it again tomorrow, and again the next day. Imagine yourself holding a set of keys in your hand. Each key is a choice. One key opens the door to the same old loop, the same conversations, the same frustrations, the same excuses. Another key unlocks a door you've never opened before. It's unfamiliar, maybe even intimidating, but it leads toward the life you say you want. The keys are already in your hand. The question is whether you'll keep unlocking the same door, or whether you'll dare to turn the one that leads somewhere new. Choice is power disguised as simplicity. It rarely feels grand. It feels like lacing up your shoes for a morning walk instead of rolling back into bed. It feels like pausing before you say yes to a favor you don't have time for. It feels like speaking up when you'd rather shrink back into silence. Each of these tiny decisions is a declaration. I am someone who chooses growth over comfort. And yes, the old habits will resist. They'll whisper that change is impossible, that you've tried before and failed. But every time you choose differently, even in the smallest way, you weaken that old voice. You begin to prove to yourself that you are not your past patterns. You are the one who chooses, over and over, until the new choice becomes the new habit, and the new habit becomes the new you. Once you begin to taste the power of choice, you quickly discover that it's not enough to rely on sheer willpower. Habits don't thrive in a vacuum. They thrive in an ecosystem. Look around at your environment. Every object, every sound, every person in your orbit is either nudging you forward or tugging you back. Jen Sincero reminds you that your surroundings are not neutral. They're constantly influencing you, whispering suggestions, shaping your path. Picture your home as a stage. The props you place on it set the tone for the performance you're about to give. A yoga mat left, rolled out on the floor, is an invitation. A bowl of fruit on the counter becomes a quiet nudge toward health. On the other hand, a glowing television remote perched on the couch is a siren call to sink into hours of distraction. When you understand this, you stop seeing your environment as static and start treating it as an ally. Think about your social world too. Every conversation carries a frequency. Spend enough time with people who complain, gossip, or stay stuck in fear, and that energy seeps into your bones. Surround yourself with people who are committed to growth, and suddenly your bold choices feel normal, even expected. Sincero makes it clear, if you want to become a badass, you need to curate your circle. That doesn't mean abandoning people you love, but it does mean setting clear boundaries around the voices you let shape your identity. Now imagine redesigning your environment as if it were a garden. You pull out the weeds of old clutter, clothes that remind you of who you no longer are, notes from projects you abandoned years ago. You plant new symbols everywhere. A vision board on the wall, a stack of books that expand your mind, a playlist that lights your spirit on fire. Each change is small, but together they create a landscape where your new habits feel at home. You also start to notice the invisible environment, your routines. The path you walk every morning, the route you drive to work, the rituals you use to end your day. These patterns shape your energy as much as the physical objects do. By redesigning them, adding a pause for gratitude before checking email, or stretching before bed instead of scrolling, you reshape the very air you live in. This isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. When your environment mirrors your new identity, your habits require less force to maintain. You no longer fight against yourself at every turn. You're carried by the current you've created. Imagine walking into your space and feeling like it already believes in you, even on the days you don't fully believe in yourself. That is the power of designing your environment with intention. It becomes a silent coach, a constant reminder, a stage set for the life you're stepping into. As you begin to shape your environment, something unexpected rises to the surface: the discomfort of saying no. Jen Sincero calls this the art of boundaries, and at first it feels like standing at the edge of a cliff without a railing. You're used to being agreeable, to stretching yourself thin to please others, to nodding along even when your whole body wants to shake its head. But every time you say yes when you mean no, you are building a habit of self-betrayal. And every time you draw a clear boundary, you are practicing the habit of self-respect. Picture yourself as a house with doors and windows wide open. Anyone can walk in, rearrange your furniture, leave their shoes on your rug. It feels generous to keep the doors open, but over time your space becomes crowded and chaotic. Boundaries are the locks on those doors. They don't make you selfish. They make you sovereign. They allow you to choose who enters, how long they stay, and what energy they bring with them. The first time you set a boundary, your chest might tighten. You may fear rejection, judgment, or the loss of connection. Saying no to a friend's last-minute request feels like betraying them, even though saying yes would mean betraying yourself. But then it happens. You hold your ground, you speak your truth with clarity and kindness, and you survive. The world does not collapse, and you feel something even better than relief. You feel free. Boundaries are not walls. They are not punishments. They are invitations to deeper, healthier relationships. When you teach others how to treat you, you give them the chance to meet you with respect. And if they cannot, you gain the clarity to step away. Each boundary you set is a habit of honoring your energy, your time, your dreams. It's a way of telling the universe, I am someone who values myself. Imagine walking through your day with a lantern of awareness in one hand and a shield of boundaries in the other. A coworker tries to unload their project onto your plate. You pause, breathe, and say, I don't have the bandwidth for that right now. A relative makes a snide remark. You calmly reply, I won't engage in this kind of talk, and change the subject. These moments are not small. They are bricks laid firmly in the foundation of your new identity. Boundaries transform not only your relationships with others, but also your relationship with yourself. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, finishing the workout, turning off the TV, closing the laptop at a reasonable hour, you prove that your word matters. You stop being a house with open doors and start becoming a fortress of clarity, where love flows in, but chaos does not take over. In the silence after you say no, you notice something surprising. There's space. Space to breathe, to focus, to rest, to build. Space for the habits that serve you to grow roots instead of being choked out by everyone else's demands. And you realize that boundaries are not barriers between you and love. They are bridges that carry love more clearly, without resentment clouding the path. Clouding the path. Clouding the path. Once you've claimed your identity and begun to guard it with boundaries, you start to notice another force at work every time you speak. The words you choose are not just sounds that leave your mouth. They are seeds, dropped into the soil of your mind and the minds of everyone who hears you. Jen Sincero insists that language carries energy, and the energy you speak out loud eventually builds the walls of the life you live inside. Think back to the last time you muttered, I'm so bad at this, or sighed, I'll never get it right. Those words didn't just describe your reality, they reinforced it. They became bricks in the old identity you're trying to leave behind. Your subconscious hears every sentence you say, whether it's whispered in frustration or spoken like a fact, and it quietly adjusts your self-image to match. The story you tell about yourself is the story you will live. Now imagine flipping that script. Instead of saying, I'm terrible with money, you declare, I am someone who makes smart choices with money. Instead of sighing, I never stick to habits, you affirm, I am committed to showing up for myself every day. At first it might feel fake, like wearing clothes that don't fit yet. But words have a strange magic. The more you speak them, the more your body begins to believe them. And belief, over time, becomes reality. It's like planting a garden with intention. If you toss seeds into the soil carelessly, weeds sprout just as easily as flowers. But if you choose your seeds carefully, water them daily, and protect them from pests, your garden grows into something vibrant. Your words are those seeds. You can choose bitterness, doubt, and self-sabotage, or you can choose courage, love, and power. Either way, your life will grow in the direction of your language. There is also the matter of how you speak about others. Every complaint, every gossip, every negative phrase is a ripple that expands outward and comes back to you. When you train your mouth to bless, to encourage, to uplift, you begin to live in an atmosphere of respect and possibility. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about refusing to reinforce the patterns that drag you down. Consider a simple moment. You spill your coffee in the morning. The old habit is to groan, I'm such a mess. But with your new awareness, you pause. You catch the words before they harden. You smile instead and say, I can handle this. I'm learning to slow down. The action is the same. You wipe up the spill. But the energy is different. You are practicing being someone who speaks life, not someone who speaks defeat. Language is one of the most powerful tools you own. It shapes how you see yourself, how others see you, and how your habits take root. Every word is a choice, every sentence a vote. As you become intentional with your language, you're not just editing your vocabulary. You are redesigning the script of your life, one declaration at a time, with awareness as your light, boundaries as your shield, and language as your brush. You now turn to the simplest but most underestimated power of all, the daily upgrade. Jen Sincero reminds you that life doesn't transform in thunderclaps of change, but in the quiet rhythm of repeated actions. Habits are like drops of water. Alone they seem small, but over time, they carve rivers through stone, shaping entire landscapes. Picture your morning as a blank canvas. You have a choice. Fill it with the frantic scramble of checking notifications before your eyes are fully open, or with a breath, a glass of water, a single thought of gratitude. That one shift may feel insignificant in the moment, but it plants a seed that says, I am someone who begins my day with intention. And tomorrow, when you water that seed again, it grows roots. After a week, it sprouts. After a month, it becomes a part of who you are. The mistake most people make is believing they need to leap straight into monumental changes. They decide to meditate for an hour a day, or run 5 miles every morning, or never touch sugar again. It's a bold start, but it's not sustainable. The mind rebels, the body resists, and soon the old habits slide back in. Sincero shows you that the path of the badass is not about grand gestures. It's about consistency. One tiny, deliberate act stacked upon another until the weight of them tips the scale of your life. Think of a staircase spiraling upward. Each step is small, sometimes annoyingly so, but each one raises you higher. You don't leap to the top in a single bound. You climb, step by step, breath by breath. Daily upgrades are those steps. Drink 1 more glass of water today. Speak 1 kind word to yourself in the mirror. Write for 5 minutes. Walk around the block. These are not chores. They are votes, small investments that accumulate interest. There's a hidden beauty in these little rituals. They bypass the drama of motivation. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. You don't need the perfect plan or the perfect morning routine curated by a guru. You need to pick 1 action, repeat it, and let repetition carry you. Over time, the habit takes on a life of its own, like a wheel that keeps spinning long after you've given it a push. And when resistance whispers, "This is too small. It won't matter. You'll never change," you remember that it's not about the size of the step, but the direction of it. A plane shifted by just a few degrees will land in a completely different city hours later. Your habits work the same way. Small shifts today decide where you'll arrive tomorrow. So you keep upgrading piece by piece, not because you're trying to fix yourself, but because you've chosen to become someone new. The daily habits aren't just tasks on a checklist. They are evidence. Evidence that you are stepping into the badass you were meant to be, and building a life that fits the size of your spirit. Just when you start to feel steady, resistance shows up. It always does. At first it's quiet, almost polite. A whisper in the back of your mind saying, "Skip it today, you've earned a break." Then it grows louder, disguising itself as logic. "You're too busy. You'll start tomorrow. 1 missed day won't matter." Before you know it, you're back at the fridge late at night, back to old patterns that feel like old friends. Jen Sincero explains that resistance isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign you're on the edge of transformation. Think of resistance as a guard dog posted at the gates of change. It barks, growls, and tries to scare you back into the safety of your old life. Not because the new life is wrong, but because your brain craves the comfort of the familiar. The dog doesn't know the difference between danger and possibility. It just knows something is different, and different feels unsafe. So what do you do when the dog snarls? You don't run away. You don't beat yourself up for being afraid. You stand your ground. You recognize resistance for what it is, fear dressed up as logic. You whisper to yourself, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but I'm doing this anyway." Every time you move forward in the presence of resistance, you teach your brain a new lesson. Change does not kill me. Change makes me stronger. Picture a mountain trail. At the base, the path is wide and easy, but as you climb higher, rocks jut out, the air thins, and your legs ache. This is resistance. It wants you to stop, turn back, and settle for the valley you already know. But if you keep climbing, step by step, eventually the view opens up. The struggle was not a punishment. It was preparation. The muscles you built pushing through the resistance are the very muscles that will carry you to the summit. Sincero offers simple strategies for disarming resistance before it takes control. Make your habits ridiculously easy at first. So easy, it feels almost silly. Want to build a meditation practice? Start with 2 minutes. Want to write a book? Commit to 1 paragraph a day. By shrinking the task, you deny resistance the chance to shout, "This is impossible." You slide under its guard. And once you're moving, momentum takes over. Another strategy is to celebrate progress relentlessly. Resistance feeds on the story that you're failing. When you pause to notice even the smallest win, a glass of water instead of soda, a walk instead of scrolling, you interrupt that story. You remind yourself, "I am doing it. I am becoming this person." The celebration itself becomes a habit, reinforcing the truth that you are capable of change. The real lesson is this: resistance never disappears, but it does lose its power when you stop treating it like an enemy and start seeing it as a signpost. If fear is showing up, it means you are moving in the right direction. The old identity is crumbling, and the new one is demanding space. So you thank the fear, you smile at the guard dog, and you take the next step anyway. That is how badass habits are forged. Not in the absence of resistance, but in your willingness to dance with it until it can no longer keep up. You've learned to notice your habits, to choose differently, to guard your energy with boundaries, and to speak with power. But even the strongest will can falter in isolation. This is where the book reminds you of a truth we often resist. Transformation multiplies in community. Alone, you can push for a while. Together, you can move mountains. Think of a single flame flickering in the dark. It burns, but it is fragile. A sudden gust could snuff it out. Now imagine hundreds of flames gathered together, lighting the night sky, warming everything around them. That is what it feels like to surround yourself with people who are also committed to growth. Your small flame is no longer at the mercy of the wind. It's part of a fire that cannot be ignored. Jen Sincero emphasizes the power of accountability. When you declare a new habit only to yourself, it's easy to let it slide. No one else is watching. No one else knows. But when you speak it aloud to someone you trust, when you invite them to hold you accountable, the stakes rise. You no longer carry the dream in silence. You've woven it into the fabric of a relationship. And the people who love you, the ones you choose carefully, the ones who respect your boundaries, will want to see you win. Picture a friend calling you on a Tuesday morning. They don't ask if you meditated, or wrote, or went to the gym. They say, "How did your habit go today?" Suddenly, your promise is not just a private whisper in your own head. It is part of a conversation, a shared reality. That gentle question becomes another form of scaffolding around your new identity, helping it hold steady until it can stand on its own. But accountability is not only about support, it is also about honesty. Sometimes the people you invite into your circle will call you out. They will remind you of your bigger vision when you want to shrink. They will tell you that you are capable of more when you are tempted to settle. It may sting, but it is a loving sting, the kind that pushes you toward the person you declared yourself to be. Community also works in subtler ways. When you see someone you admire practicing their own habits with dedication, you feel inspired. Their discipline becomes proof that it's possible. Their progress becomes fuel for your own. Growth is contagious. The energy of those around you seeps into your own bones, just as your commitment encourages them to keep going. And so you begin to gather your allies, friends who dream big, mentors who see farther than you do, communities that celebrate success rather than resent it. Each connection becomes another current carrying you forward, another reminder that you are not alone. Because the journey to badass habits is not a solitary climb. It is a shared expedition, with voices cheering you on and hands reaching out to pull you higher when you stumble. You start to understand. Becoming your highest self is not just about you. Every habit you cultivate ripples outward, touching the lives of those around you. When you honor your word, others learn to trust. When you set boundaries, others learn to respect. When you speak power, others learn to believe. Your transformation becomes an invitation for theirs. And together, the fire grows. There comes a day when you stop counting the steps. The glass of water in the morning is no longer a task to check off. It's just something you do. The words you speak to yourself no longer feel like a performance. They feel like truth. The boundary you once trembled to set is now second nature, as automatic as locking your door at night. This is when you realize the habits you once struggled to create have become part of your identity. You are no longer trying to be someone new. You are living as that person. Jen Sincero calls this the moment you step into your badass life. It's not a single event, not a grand ceremony with confetti and applause. It's quieter, subtler, and yet infinitely more powerful. It's when you notice that fear still whispers, but it no longer decides. It's when you catch yourself choosing growth without hesitation. It's when your environment, your words, your community, and your daily rituals align so seamlessly that they lift you forward without effort. Imagine standing before a mirror, looking into your own eyes. But instead of seeing a stranger weighed down by old stories, you recognize someone familiar. Strong, resilient, radiant, with self-trust. The canvas you've been painting is no longer chaotic strokes. It's a picture that makes sense, full of bold colors, clear shapes, and patterns that reflect who you decided to be. This is not an accident. This is the result of showing up, one choice at a time, until the new identity took root and grew into the air you breathe. And the journey doesn't end here. Habits are living things. They require tending, adjusting, renewing. A badass life is not a destination you arrive at. It is a practice you continue, a story you keep writing. Each day offers you the same invitation as the first. Who will you be today? What identity will you strengthen with your choices, your boundaries, your words, your community, your rituals? There will always be seasons of challenge, times when old habits try to return, when resistance circles back like that guard dog at the gate. But now you know how to meet it. You've learned to notice, to pause, to choose, to design, to declare, to celebrate, to invite support. And with each cycle, you grow stronger, more grounded, more free. The transformation is not in some distant future. It is here, in the moment you choose to stand tall, speak truth, honor your time, and act as the person you have decided to become. This is what it means to live as a badass. To live awake, aligned, and unapologetically yourself. And when you live this way, you don't just change your own life. You become a lighthouse for others. A reminder that habits are not cages, but keys. Not chains, but stepping stones. So as the story closes, you carry with you more than ideas. You carry a new identity, one built brick by brick, word by word, day by day. And with every choice from here on, you're not just creating habits, you are creating yourself. Are creating yourself. Are creating yourself.